Morning. Midterm grades were submitted today. I think you guys should be able to view them on McKendree's website. So if some of you have arranged because of illness or other reasons to turn in late papers, so when you turn those papers in, your grade will change. For those of you who aren't familiar with the American school system, for McKendree, midterm grades are just a reflection of where you are now. It's a way for us to let you know if you need to work on something or to tell you you're doing okay. But these grades will change the minute I grade your next paper. Okay. So they're not permanent. Do not panic. Um, they will be changing as you submit more assignments. The grades will change. It's just a reflection of where you are right now. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Um, let's preview what we've got going on right now and what's coming up. You should be working on your MLA group presentations. I posted on Brightspace under announcements some resources that will help you to put together your presentation. You're going to read the process analysis chapter for Monday. Process analysis is just another way of explaining how to do something. Okay. You are explaining how to use MLA to the group. So we're going to talk about the best ways to explain things in writing and in orally as you guys are working on. So that is how the explaining or the process analysis is going to come into this assignment. Okay. This is due next Thursday. We may have to run over depending on how long the presentations take until the following Monday. So you're going to read the process analysis chapter in subjects and strategies that starts on page 198 for Monday. And then let's go down here to the assignments that are coming up. You're going to read the essay, Why Leaves Turn Color in the Fall. Okay, there's a link to it right here. There will be a quiz on it that you also take, and I will post the link to that. The midterm exam is coming up, so we're going to do some review tomorrow for the midterm, see if you have any questions about it. It basically covers just what we've covered up until this point. I will have a review topic list that I post that has everything that will be on the test, but it includes some of the things that we've talked about so far, like the writing process, introductions, conclusions, thesis statements, all of those things, how to tell a story. Okay. And then the group presentations are on the 11th. So that's what's coming up. All right, hold on a second. Let me let somebody in. So I want to review a little bit about what he talked about yesterday with the library. Okay. I like the new system they have set up that it makes it much easier for you to save things. So let's just walk through it one more time so you guys are familiar with it. Okay. Share my screen here again. So he showed you how to access it from the main page. This is under My MCK, right, where you come to find Brightspace and to find the Word programs that you might need, Word documents and things like that. Right over here, it says Home and Library. So when you click on that, that's one of the ways you can access the library. I mean, Google will take you there too. If you go to Google and you're like McKendree Library, it'll give you the direct link to go there as well. Okay. Always start your research at the library, because one of the things he pointed out with the AOC example yesterday, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is an American politician from New York who was talking about how they distorted her announcing that she was nominating Bernie Sanders, even though everybody knew that Joe Biden had won the nomination. Also says in a short speech, she was only allotted 60 seconds. I'm not sure. So they didn't make any aware. It's not like she could have given a longer speech. They were like, you have 60 seconds to do this. So them pointing out that it was in a short speech makes it seem like it was deliberate. That was just the amount of time she'd been allotted at the convention. So yeah, media has to take a look at their integrity lately. So you have to do a lot more questioning, unfortunately, of media sources than you used to, which where he comes into looking at multiple media sources comes into play. And I think that's an excellent idea. Also, for Americans, I like to look at sources, I think I've told you this, outside of the country, to see how the world is looking at us, because they have less of an invested interest in our politics than we do. I mean, they have some if they're an ally like Great Britain, but you can get a more objective view. Not totally objective, nothing is, but a more objective view of what's going on. Okay. So he introduced you to the new search that's going on, Primo Discovery Search. So let's take a look at it again. First, does anybody have any questions about it that you want me to specifically go over? If they shout them out if you have them. I'm going to open it up here. I mean, it's a fairly basic opening screen, right? The next two papers we are going to do involve a controversy, okay? A controversy means there are reasonable opinions on both sides. It's controversial if there are arguments that can be made on both sides of the issue. Okay. Some things are not controversial. We hope, like, yeah, we should not abuse children. That's, you know, hopefully there's no one out there saying that there's a reasonable argument for abusing children. So a controversy means there are reasonable opinions on both sides. And we'll talk about where to find some controversies. So I'm going to type in, excuse me, a current controversy. And he also talked about how you could add things to it. Now, immigration is a huge topic. You would find multiple books on that topic, right? Your next paper is 5 pages. You can't write a 5-page paper on everything to do with immigration. You have to narrow it down, right? Maybe using one of the brainstorming techniques that we've talked about. So I'm going to narrow it down because to the Dreamers. Dreamers has to do with an act that was passed several years ago, that if you were brought here as a child immigrant, you're not legal, but your parents brought you here and you did not have any choice in the matter, it allowed you to attend school and have some of the access to government ID and things like that that would allow you to attend college. Okay, so there's a lot of controversy about that. They're not legal residents of the United States. So one thing I should point out is when it says to get complete results, go ahead and always sign in. I am going to sign in that just like you would. You hit this button. My information was already in there. You may have to enter yours. Okay, so this is what comes up. Right now I'm looking in the library catalog, so there's a lot of books if I want to get some background information. But most of what you're going to look at has to do with articles, okay? So if you click on articles for the search, we hit the search button again, then you get a list. That's 61,000 results is a lot of results, right? So we want to narrow that down to, you're online, you're doing an online class, so we want to look at what's available online, okay? We want to look at peer-reviewed journals. Now, he started to get into scholarly journals yesterday. We kind of ran out of time, but peer-reviewed means I create this piece of writing as a researcher. I submit it to the journal, and then the journal has people who are experts in the field read over it, check the information, ask questions, verify methods. They really take a much harder look at it than a popular source has time to do. Okay, so a peer-reviewed source means your peers in that field. If I'm a scientist in the neuroscience field, my neuroscience peers will review my article before it is published. So these articles are considered like the pinnacle of quality. Now they tend to be more difficult to read, so you have to exercise some of the techniques he was talking about. But as he pointed out, when on that 42-page article he was looking at, he really is only looking at about 3 pages of the results. You know, he doesn't have to worry about how they did their crunching of numbers or things like that. He wants to look at how the results can support something that he wants to say in the paper. Okay, so we've already narrowed it down to available online and peer reviewed. So let's see, we're going to go down here and apply the filters. Okay, still making me sign in, come on. All right, so then I'm down to 970 results. So I probably still, I don't want that many to look through. So I can add various filters in order to do that. One of the things that we talked about was creation date. So like, basically we want the most recent information, right? So let's narrow it down to 1900 is way too long ago to talk about this program that did not even exist. So we're going to go within the last 5 years. So we'll start in 2015. Okay. And it's not letting me apply the filter. There we go. You may have to click next to it to get it to apply it. There we are. So now I've cut that in half, right? 480 results. Still, you don't want to have to look through 400 sources. So it has some suggestions for subjects that would let you narrow it down, and it shows you how much. So immigration policy, I could talk about undocumented instrument, the politics of it. Let's look at the politics of it. We'll apply that filter to it. And now I'm down to 49 results, much more manageable, right? Immigrant bashing in healthcare. So then that gives you some other options for looking into different aspects of the issue. Dissent in immigration. Anchor babies and birthright citizenship. That's when you come here, you have a child. Any child born in the United States is automatically a citizen. Okay. So there's articles. This one is closely related to dreamers. Let's try a different search. Immigration and children. Dreamer. I have still have to go back and narrow down my choices. Okay. So here's one, Jewish troops to fight Trump's nixing of Dreamers. So let's just take it. Yeah, this sounds like an article that I might want to look at. So I click on it. And it's slow today. So then it offers me the available items. Now, what if there's something like this happens when it says it's not available, right? One of the things you can do if something isn't available, because I forgot I hadn't clicked online sources yet, is if you do find something that you think would be useful, but it's not available online, you can have the librarians, remember the chat, if you go back to McKendree's main page for the library, under help, ask a librarian. You can chat, text, email, so you can chat with them and say, hey, I'd really like to have this source, but I don't have access. They can usually find a way to help you access it and then maybe email it to you. Okay. So if you do find a source that's not available, that doesn't mean you can't get a hold of it. Okay. That means you should do your research early on to give them time to look for those. So we'll go ahead and click available online so we don't run into any more sources we cannot find. So here's a newspaper article. We'll click on it. And you don't read the whole article. Remember what he said? You just want to look at the abstract and see, or the description, to see if it might have the information you're looking for. So the White House on Sunday delivered to Congress a long list of hardline immigration measures President Trump was demanding in exchange for any deal to protect young undocumented immigrants known as Dreamers. Okay. So if that sounds right to you, then you can save it, right? You take your little pen, it goes over here, up here, it saves it to your specific. So up here, it's got my name, right? If I click on my name, it's got my library card, my loans, any requests, if you make a request for something that's not available. And now I just save that to my favorites. I saved something else earlier. So now I have access to it and I can get back to it anytime I want to. Okay. If I want, I can add a label to it. So maybe I want to call this ENG111 controversy paper. Okay. And then later I can sort by labels. So I add labels to both of these. Make sure they're the same one. This one didn't take. Oh, good. You can just, once you create one, you can just add it. And then the label appears over here. So then you'll probably, if you have multiple labels, they'll all be listed here. So maybe you got 2 or 3 classes you're working on papers in, different papers in the same class. Just you can label the research that you're doing on each one. It's a really nice way to keep your research organized. Anybody have any questions? If I did decide I wanted to go look in this issue, view online, I go to, and this is the database I'll be introducing you guys to look for controversial issues. Well, it looks like they're having a problem. All right, if this happens, it says it's in this database, scaling context, opposing viewpoints. So let me show you how to find it if the search is not cooperating. So we're going to go back to the library's main page, right? So one of the things besides the overall search they have is a database list. So these are collections of information, articles on topics. Okay, so the one that it said this one was in opposing viewpoints. So if I click on O, there it is, opposing viewpoints in context. I can go directly to that database if it's erroring out. And this is where I'd like you guys to go to find a topic. Now, for the topic that you find, you're going to use for the next 2 papers, okay? So the first paper will be like, here are what both sides are of the controversy. Here are what people on one side of the issue say. Here's what people on the other side of the issue say. So that will be the next paper, okay? And then you will take that and use it to base an argument that you want to make on the controversy and take a position on the controversy. So 2 papers, 2 different purposes. Next one is to explain both sides of the issue, okay? The last one, the big research paper we do, will be to take a position. So don't get those confused. Let's just concentrate on the first one, which is explaining both sides of the issue. So first you have to have an issue, right? So this is a database that specifically focuses on things that are controversies. That's why it's called opposing viewpoints, right? Okay. So it has a place that you can browse issues, and it divides it up by topics. So you can look into, are you interested in science and technology? Are you interested in energy and environment, health and medicine, business, if you're a business major, law? Are you in criminal justice, society and culture? So you basically can click on one of these topic areas that you're interested in, look and see what you might be interested in researching. Some have been updated recently, okay? So anybody have one they see they'd like to take a look at? Anything strike your fancy? There's a lot of potential topics.
Fossil fuels.
What was that?
Fossil fuels.
Fossil fuels? Okay. Let's take a look at fossil fuels. Now we'll probably have to narrow that down for your paper, and this is a great place to do that because it's got lots of different articles that talk about. So here's some viewpoints. You can see what some of the people are arguing. Why we must make green energy a public good, quitting fossil fuels, using fossil fuels to help fight world hunger. So there's all kinds of different aspects. You narrow it down to a smaller one. Similarly, if you find a book on your topic, don't try to cover everything that's in the book, but it can also help you divide up the topic. So one chapter should be on one aspect of the subject. Okay. So you can look through and say, what looks interesting in terms of, are you interested in green energy, using fossil fuels to fight world hunger, averting climate disaster? And it's got this nice guide here at the top. So remember, we just talked about academic journals and peer-reviewed journals. So a certain amount of your research on the next 2 papers has to be from academic journals. Not all of it, but a certain number of sources, at least 3 in the next paper, have to be academic journals. So there you go. You have academic journals right there. You click on it and it's going to give you a list. Okay, California is trying to become the first carbon negative state where they don't put out more carbon into the atmosphere. So we'll click on that and see if we want to take a look at it. So then it gives you all the information, and generally all of these databases have somewhere on here, you may have to look for it. It might be in the right column, it might be in the left column. Up here, it's at the top. See where it says cite? So it's going to give you all of the possible citation methods that are not all, but many of the common ones. We're using MLA 8th edition, okay? So right there, you can select it, copy it, paste it, and you've got your entry for your works cited for your paper, okay? And then you can export it if you want to one of these, or you can just copy it into a document. So you could send it to your McKendree OneDrive. It's going to ask me a lot of questions right now that I'm not going to bother to answer, or you can just copy it into a page where you're gathering sources. So don't forget that they're trying to help you cite things as easily as possible. So then you can look through the article and see if there's anything useful. And then like, if you're looking for keywords, let me help you make your research as easy as possible. Control F is find something. So you want to specifically find things on global warming. Right there, it's telling me there's one mention of global warming in here. It highlights it, and then I can go to that section and look specifically about what it says on global warming. Okay. So skim through the article. You don't necessarily have to read unless you're getting background information and you're learning about your issue. They also have the source citation here at the bottom. You can select the one. If you're in a class that's using APA, you can select it instead. Okay. Oh, let me show you a couple others. So after you have the academic journals, if you want to look at more like these are just featured viewpoints, but there are more viewpoints to look at. If you're like, I don't like any of those topics, what are some other viewpoints on fossil fuels? Renewable energy, let's see, wind and solar, dependence on foreign oil. So you can kind of see if the first topics don't interest you, you can look at others. But there are also other, infographics if you need some visuals. Here's how much the U.S. consumes of fossil fuels. News that's going on in the world. Okay, we're at a turning point on climate change. Magazines. Statistics is a nice one when you need logical evidence to support it. Okay. The majority of Americans give priority to developing alternative energy over fossil fuels. So that it says 2011 to 2017 during that time period. So it's got some statistics that might be helpful. Websites, videos, okay, even images. Images and graphics are not a substitute for content. You'll need at least 5 pages of text, but you can add to, like Jane Fonda's here protesting climate change. She's a celebrity. So there are all these different kinds of sources. It's not just articles in academic journals, newspapers, videos, websites. Sometimes they're TED audio podcasts. Remember he mentioned yesterday. So people, if you're having a hard time finding sources, just know that there are places to go. Why do I say start at the library? Because they have weeded out most of the illegitimate, not all, but most of the illegitimate websites and websites that are just clickbait, that they're really not there to provide news or information. They're just trying to shock people to get them to click on something so they can make money off advertisements. Okay. Those are not helpful when you're trying to do research. Okay. So yeah, it'll divide all of these things up. So if you want to watch a video on something, let's see what kind of videos they have. Will U.S. be a clean energy or a fossil fuel superpower? Okay. So some different ones if you want to get some background. Here's a frontline fossil fuels, the engine of our lives. That one's pretty old though. Remember, you want to stay more current. Is this the new normal? It's pretty short, 5-minute little video. Might have some good information in it. Let's go back out. So this is the issue of interest today, anti-racism. So let's click on another one. Let's look at law and politics. Anybody see one they're interested in looking at further? Anyone going into journalism or anything to do with media? No. How about, let's look at, let's see, Title IX. There it is. Let's look at Title IX. Title IX is a law that says that there must be equality in education for both sexes. Okay. It covers things like extracurricular activities, sexual harassment, sex crimes. So here's the overview, right? It prohibits discrimination. Try to combine those two words. It prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex for all educational programs and activities that relate to it, including extracurricular activities. Okay. In 1972 is when it was implemented, so you could look at how it's affected education since it was implemented. Or we can go down and look at what are the featured viewpoints. Title IX already has a fair process for students accused of sexual assault. Some people are arguing the process was not fair, I believe. Sexual misconduct proceedings must provide due process. So here's like two sides of the same coin. So if you wanted to talk about how a sexual assault claim moves through a college community, some people say the process is fair and some say it needs better due process. Okay, so you could look at both sides. This would be ideal if you're doing the next paper and explaining what both sides of this issue think, right? So academic journals, prosecuting sexual harassment in the Me Too area, deliberate indifference, how to fix Title IX campus sexual assault jurisprudence, because there's been some talk about it recently. Okay, primary sources. A primary source is a source that directly, so it's like I'm talking to a person who witnessed the event. They are a primary source. Talking to someone who talked to someone who witnessed the event is a secondary source. It's like that game of telephone. The farther away you get from the original event, the less reliable or ideal sources are. Doesn't mean they can't be used, but primary sources are sort of on the ground, in the trenches, eyewitness kind of, sources. Somebody writing about what happened who was not there would be a secondary source. Okay. And so they've divided all of those ideas up that we've talked about. Where are all the women coaches? That could be a part of Title IX. Fairness. Okay. So again, you can look at all of the viewpoints and see if there's any topics. Pregnant athletes. Betsy DeVos was the former education secretary under President Trump. So they're talking about her talking to men's rights groups. This is a case where athletes were abused by a doctor. The gymnasts were abused over a period of years and got away with it, basically. Title IX undermines sports programs. Title IX has improved sports programs. Again, you get to see what both sides are saying. So you have lots of different types of sources that can be used and be useful. Where did I find this again? So I went to the library. I went to the list of databases, A to Z. It's called Opposing Viewpoints. So I went to the O's in the alphabetical list. And then I clicked on it. So what I'd like you to do is go to this website and start looking over some of the topics to see which ones interest you and type some interesting topics in the chat. We'll continue discussing libraries and resources. But right now, let's take a look. We'll browse issues. Choose one of these topic areas and find a source, find a topic you like and put it into the chat. So go to the library, go to the database list, library. database list. O, opposing viewpoints. When you find an issue that you find interesting, type it in the chat. Give some people ideas. I think if there's anything I'd be interested in reading about, if you guys are interested in writing about it. Ooh, lots of people, drugs and athletes, okay. On that vein, lots of people write about marijuana legalization, but it's become legal. I would like to see your, what are the effects of legalization? An interesting topic. COVID, of course, yeah. Mutating the presidential election process. Yes, animal rights. All of these would be need to be narrowed down. Do we want to talk about money in politics? We could talk about the Electoral College, which has allowed 2 presidents to take office without winning the majority vote of the American people, which is an interesting concept in a democracy. For drugs and athletes, do we mean steroids, other performance enhancing drugs, blood doping? You know, what kinds of athletes? High school athletes, professional athletes. Some other interesting ones. Anybody hear any recently in the news too? I will readily stipulate there are interesting things coming up in the news every day. Oh, no one's done one on police reform? If you're interested in that topic. I always love new topics. I don't mind reading about old topics usually, unless I've had a lot of it. Periodically, I'll be like, please don't write about this unless you must. I don't think I have anything on that list right now. All right. We got about 1 minute remaining. So tomorrow we'll continue talking about sources at the library. I'll answer any questions about the presentations or any of the upcoming assignments. I'm going to open up another session right after this for any questions or help. If somebody wants to chat about what controversy they're considering for the next paper, you can let me know. So unless you have any questions, I will see you tomorrow.